Hi everyone, I hope you are doing well. Welcome back to my another Salesforce interview preparation video. In this video, we are going to see some Apex related interesting questions. So let's get started. Here is the first scenario. You have a test method that performs 98 SOQL queries before calling test.startTest. There are more SOQLs after test.stopTest. The test fails due to exceeding the SOQL query limit. Why is the test failing despite using test.startTest? So we already know we use test.startTest and stopTest because it gives us new set of governor limits. So we can put in more DML, SOQLs, everything. We can have more positive and negative test case scenarios inside our test class, right? So that's why we use startTest and stopTest. But here in the test method, you have already performed 98 queries and then you have called startTest, and then in between start and stop you made some more SOQL queries, and there are again more SOQL queries to happen after test.stopTest, and the code fails at this point. Now why did this happen? Because this should give us new set of governor limits, right? Here we should not get an error that you have exceeded DML limit, you have exceeded SOQL limit. We should not get this error, right? So this happened because, now understand this very carefully, between start and stop, you get a new set of SOQL limits. So now between this, you can perform 100 SOQL queries. But once the code reaches test.stopTest, now your code will go back to the original context. Now it will carry forward the limits that you had left there. Okay, so you have already performed 98, so you are left with only 2. So if you try to do more SOQLs, then you will get an error. You are left with only 2 SOQLs over here because you have already performed 98 queries before calling test.startTest. Okay, so if you want to understand this concept better, there is an article on Salesforce documentation page which describes the same situation. So if you see this line, the startTest method does not refresh the context of the test. It adds a context to your test. So if your class is making 98 SOQL queries before it starts, then between start and stop, you can make additional 100 queries. But once stopTest is called, the program goes back to the original context and can only make 2 additional SOQL queries before reaching the limit of 100. This is very important concept. It does not refresh the context of the test. It just adds a new context, and once it's done, it's back to the original context. Okay, so this is very important concept. So now it should be making sense to you why you are getting an error despite of using test.start and test.stop. Okay, so if you want to screenshot this scenario and answer with it for future reference, you can screenshot this slide. Let's move on to the next question. In Apex, what's the difference between using database.insert with all or none false parameter and try-catch block around insert statement? So I have pasted code snippets over here so that you are clear with what I'm talking about. So in database.insert, I have made this parameter false. We already know that we have this all or none parameter in database methods. So this looks very similar because it feels like you are anyway going to insert some accounts even if some accounts fail in between, right? But it doesn't happen in this case, in try-catch, okay? So what happens is, in database.insert, when you have put all or none false, this will allow partial success, okay? And if any record fails to insert due to any error like validation rules or required fields, anything, then the successful records will still be inserted. So here the key is successful records will still be inserted. And in case of try-catch block, when you perform a standard insert operation in try-catch, if any record fails in that list, a DML exception occurs and none of the records in that particular DML operation will be inserted. So it will be rolled back. But now the question is, will this roll back the entire transaction? No. So try catch block, in case of failure, only rolls back the try block, not the entire code, okay, not the entire transaction. So the overall transaction is not automatically rolled back unless it's explicitly done. Okay, so using save points and all those things, those are different, but the overall transaction is not rolled back. So this means that DML operations that occurred before failing insert will still be committed unless you manually use a save point and roll back. So this is clear. Let's move on to the next question. Can you create a dynamic SOQL query that is immune to SOQL injection? How would you handle this scenario? If someone is not aware what is SOQL injection, so SOQL injection is like an attack or a theft that someone is trying to perform through the input data. So SOQL injection is basically if you have put this input parameter name, this is your query where you are comparing name with the name field and you have used like parameter. But suppose someone just puts in blank, just quotes, 2 quotes and nothing inside them. Then this query is going to query all contacts in your system. This result is going to show you all contacts, not just deleted ones, because this OR part is messed up. Okay, so it's going to have all records exposed to external users or whatever. So this is SOQL injection. Now what is defense to it? Using escape single quotes. Because if you use single quotes in your query, that will be added as a string in your query. It won't be a variable or a value. Okay, it will be attached to your string because it has quotes. So you have to use escape single quotes for your input parameters. So always make sure that when you are adding something in your query, first use string.escape single quotes function to sanitize that input and then add it in the query. So this is the best practice to avoid SOQL injections. Okay. Alternatively, consider using bind variables which are automatically escaped. Okay, so you can tell these 2 points. Okay, so these were 3 questions that I had for today. If you want to do interview preparation or mock interview with me, you can drop query in my Google form. The link is in the description. I hope you found this video helpful and you found some insights from this video. Do subscribe for more such insightful content. Thank you.